Let's talk about some steps to solving technology problems that are helpful. I always like to get an understanding of how comfortable people feel with doing things that might be changing settings, understanding technology, calling for help, describing an issue, other things like that. Because understanding your comfort level can help you determine whether you should just pay for somebody that's going to come out and fix it and buy that as a service, or say, I want to try and figure it out myself. So I think people want to get more comfort at doing things themselves, but they don't necessarily know exactly how it is they're going to accomplish that and get more comfortable. The second thing that is the number one priority for doing anything with technology is to make sure you protect your data. You can replace hardware. Yes, it's expensive. You can replace software applications. You can replace almost anything except your data. Any photos you've created, any documents you've created, any other things. I had a friend of mine in the neighborhood that their Mac went dead on them. It gave them a spinning wheel and wouldn't boot up. They were worried that all of their data was gone and they didn't have a backup. So you want to make sure you have a backup of your data before you do anything to your technology, to make sure you can get to your things that are only you have created, your photos and other things. The next step is to make sure you are diagnosing the symptoms. You have to think like a medical professional. When you go into a doctor's office and you say, gee, my shoulder aches or my stomach's been upset, they go through a diagnostic process to kind of analyze what it is. If they've never met you before, they're going to have to get to know you. They want to collect a little history of what you've done. And this is kind of the same thing with technology. What have you been doing? What do you have? What have you done? How have you used it? Other things like that. And so diagnosing the symptoms is always something that most technical support people go through, something you should be aware of when you go through technology problems. I'm going to give you some hints as we go through today to help understand a better way to diagnose the symptoms and describe the problem. Sometimes people will say, doctors will ask you on a level of pain, how is it from 1 to 10, right? To get a sense of how it is. And the problem is something that you have to learn to describe. And I'm going to give you 2 simple words that'll help you figure out how to describe almost any technical problem that exists with technology. The next step is searching for help. Again, if you have in-house support, you can call and get somebody to show up. That's great. If you have service contracts or agreements with your products from the manufacturer or third parties, you've got help. But if you want to search for help on your own, I'll give you some hints for finding help and the best sources for help as well. And then there's built-in diagnostic tools that are available that you may or may not be aware of. Windows gives you a little more access to diagnostic tools than the other technologies, but there are some that you can use on almost any technology that are out there. And then have a strategy using tech support. What is your approach to doing it? We'll talk about a strategy for solving that. So these are steps that anybody learning how to repair technology and going through things from networks to commercial systems to the internet to other things goes through. They try and go through these steps. And they might vary a little bit, but they're important things that people go through in any technology profession. So your comfort level might be 0, which is okay. I mean, it's okay to have absolutely no comfort at all in solving technology problems, because there are companies and services out there that you can purchase that will take care of everything for you with a phone call. They'll dispatch people or they'll remotely log into your computer. But if you can't get on the internet, sometimes things can be a little bit more difficult. Or you may have a very high comfort level and you want to learn how to take care of things completely on your own. And so just understand what it is you feel comfortable doing. And if you don't feel sure, don't worry about it. Stop and try a different approach. Try an approach that involves more help and getting more help. When I was like 18, I used to try and take on repairing my car and tuning it up. And after doing it twice and not being able to start my car up after doing some work on it, I said, doing car repair is not in my skill set. I have to get somebody else. So I know car repair, plumbing to a certain extent, I won't try and do things because things leak when you don't do it right. Electrical work, just understand what your comfort level is about taking things on, but also you can increase your comfort level by learning as you go along too. Okay. As I mentioned, protecting your data is really important. You can back up your files. These are your files, your documents, your spreadsheets, your photos, your emails. And most of the time we're using email that's cloud-based already, so that even if we lose our computers, we have a copy of our mail in the cloud with things like Gmail and Yahoo Mail and other mail, Apple Mail, making sure you've got data backed up. If you don't have it in the cloud, have it on a backup hard drive that you have. Both Windows and Apple give you the ability to back up. Both Android and iPhone and iPad give you the ability to do backups as well. Make sure you understand the backup utility. The next thing is being able to diagnose the symptoms. This is where I really like the analogy of thinking like a medical professional. You want to get a history of what's been going on. You want to understand what the symptoms are. You want to understand what other things somebody might have done. Doctors always ask you if you're having problems, digestive problems, have you changed your diet recently? Have you, and think of it like, have you installed something different on your computer? Have you changed something about your technology? Have you done something different to it that might have affected it in some way? Because unfortunately, like it or not, most problems with technology are caused by users doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So it's unfortunate, but it's very common and is the case. And sometimes things take a little bit of time. I had to change some settings on my Apple ID recently, and my notes were taking a really long time to download to my iPhone. But by powering off and powering back on, we actually were able, with Apple support, to get the iPhone working properly, and it started downloading notes. And that's one of the methods you can try, is something called a restart or reboot of your technology. Sometimes fixes things because there might be some what's called a corrupted file in there. Cutting out something in your diet might fix your GI system, for example, or clear your head or enable you to sleep better. Just simple changes like that can help. We'll talk about some of those steps too. So we talked about not knowing versus not working, trying to understand which is which. Not something not working and something you're not understanding it is a little bit different and sometimes really difficult to understand. Let's take a look at a few of these and see if you can figure out which is which. And I just put these up there. I'm not 100% sure of the answers myself, whether that's not working or not knowing. But somebody says, my microphone doesn't work, right? Is something not working, or do they not know how to set it up right? Okay, so it could be one of two things. I had a medical assistant, a doctor's office. I asked her, do you ever help your parents or adults or grandparents or family with technical issues? Oh, yeah, all the time, she says. My parents live nearby, so sometimes I just drive over to fix things. And I said, what was something recent that happened? Well, my dad said that his microphone wasn't working when he was doing Zoom meetings. And I couldn't quite understand it because he works for a remote office and he uses Zoom all the time. So I'm not sure what happened. So anyway, she said, I asked her, did you go over and fix it? Yeah, it took me like 2 minutes to fix it. I went into Zoom, checked the microphone settings, set it to the right microphone, and it worked okay. And I just couldn't understand why he couldn't figure that out himself. So sometimes there's a setting that's wrong. And sometimes when software updates itself, something doesn't work right. Okay, so that's an example of, was it the microphone worked, the software worked, but it was a setting that wasn't set properly and just needed to be changed. And how it got changed, we don't know. But It could have been the user. It could have been a software update, but it doesn't matter. Just changing the setting enabled it to work. So that's why it's difficult to understand, is something malfunctioning or is it just somebody doesn't know? So let me give you another one here. My printer skips lines. You think that's something not working or not knowing how to make it work right? Anybody have a guess on that?
Not working.
That's pretty clear that it's not working. There's something malfunctioning with the printer when it produces output that skips lines or isn't clear or something like that. It could be repaired by resetting the cartridge, but printers are physical devices, and physical devices generally have more problems than software devices. Generally, our hardware, our screens, our cables, our connectors, our hard drives, our processors, our motherboards, they're pretty reliable. And if they don't work, something just really bad happens, is what happens to a system. But generally, the problems tend to be in software. Okay, I can't send a photo to a friend. Is that likely not working or not knowing? Anybody want to take a guess?
Not knowing.
Yeah, it could be not knowing, or it could be a setting is wrong, but it's typically not knowing, as they may just not understand how to send a photo to a friend and understand where to do it in the application they're using. But you got to understand, to help them out, you've got to understand what application they're using, because sending photos is a little bit different on every device you might use. My internet is really slow. Is that not working or not knowing?
Could be both.
Yeah.
See how hard it gets to really diagnose a problem? Man, could you imagine being a technical support person and having to fix all these things and go about that? So how you go about it is what we're going to talk about next. But these are tough questions like, gee, is this, what's really going on here? Is a person just so far away from their Wi-Fi signal that their Wi-Fi signal is weak and their internet is slow when this is happening? Or are they talking about when they're on cellular? Are they talking about something else? What's really going on here? You got a lot of questions you've got to ask here too. And then I can't find my downloads. That's a real common one, right? I don't know how many of you have heard that or said that, right? I can't find my downloads when I download things. That's probably in the area of not knowing, but it could be, something different, but usually it's not knowing. So a lot of these things really are not malfunctions when people have technical problems. A lot of them are things that may just be taking time or just have another way to work around. So how do we figure these things out? How do we go about this? Okay. Describing the problem is one of the most important things you do. I don't know how many of you go into a medical, appointment and you have notes about things you want to talk to the doctor about, but it's really one of the best things you can do. So you make sure you cover everything, because you're in an unfamiliar environment. You have a limited amount of time, and you don't necessarily, know exactly how to describe it, but you want to make notes. So try, first of all, to duplicate what happens. If you can duplicate what happens, then something may not be working right. You can try and figure it out. So duplicating problems and trying to make them repeatable is important. It's difficult to say, well, this happened once 3 months ago and I haven't had it happen since, but I'd like to fix it, right? That's really a prescription for trouble, because you can't duplicate the problem. You're not even necessarily find out what's wrong. The other thing is it's helpful to make notes about the problem. Include things you click on. What icon do you click on? Where do you click on the screen? In tech support, people are trying to direct you to solve problems. They're asking you to click on certain things, but increasingly, most tech support likes to share a screen with you so that they can help direct you where to click, what to click on, how to click on as well. So it's important to do that. Screen gestures on a smartphone or a tablet, you've got taps and swipes, etc. what keystrokes you're using, what buttons you're pressing. Those are all things that help to describe the problem that you might have, because you might be able to solve it yourself, or you might have to describe the problem to somebody else. And the two words are when and this. When I click, tap, hit something, this happens. Okay, so these are the two most important words in solving technical problems: when and this. Because if your computer screen is working and your mouse is working and your keyboard is working, then you have the ability to at least function with a software application. And so you are able to click, tap, etc. But something happens that you don't think is right or is a problem, and something occurs. So when and this are really important words to understand, and describing it is really helpful for a couple of reasons. It could be a couple of steps. When I do this, this happens. When I do this, this happens. When I do this, this happens. I'm a member of a test group of software for a software company, and we're responsible for testing the software to see what might break, but we're supposed to use it in terms of everyday use in the pre-customer release version, and analyze, what happens and what kinds of problems occur. And this is what they ask us to describe. This is how they diagnose problems, to see if they can duplicate them. Because if you can describe, when I do this, this happens, somebody else can try to duplicate that and see if it happens on their system, and they can start to isolate the problem and say, oh, okay, only one person out of 5 million, got sick today, but if 4 million out of 5 million get sick, then we've got a repeatable problem. That's what software companies and technicians and diagnostic resources try to do, is they try to identify, can they repeat the issue? And if they can, then they know that there's a problem, not just with your computer or your network or your software. They know there's a problem with the system that might be taking place. And so that's really an important process of describing things. One of the challenges in solving technical problems is if you're dealing with a single vendor, like just Apple. My Apple iPhone doesn't print to my Apple printer. Oh, wait, Apple doesn't make printer. My computer Wi-Fi isn't connecting right to my internet service router. Oh, I've got a computer made by Microsoft or HP. I've got Windows. I've got a network run by somebody else. I've got multiple vendors involved here. So trying to narrow down where the problem is sometimes really difficult when you've got multiple vendors involved, because you have to try and isolate, is this problem? And repeating problems is helpful. So if you have a phone and a tablet and a computer, and you can try doing something similar with websites, with internet connections, to diagnose where your problems might be, to understand that. But it's one of the more challenging areas, is diagnosing multi-vendor problems, because lots of times the support that you can find is for one company and their own product, not for their product and somebody else's. But sometimes they know a little bit more about some other products. Google and Microsoft and Apple and Samsung Android are pretty common across a lot of areas. And so there's support that people might have an understanding for some simple issues between them. But again, when I do this, this happens, is going to help you narrow down the problem. And if you can kind of isolate and see if you can duplicate the problem with another piece of technology, it might help you. So you can solve problems, help to diagnose problems like that too. There's some existing support. Your cellular provider has a support service they provide you for as part of your cellular plan. They can help you with a lot of things that involve your cellular device, your cellular connection, other things that might be involved. So there's existing support you probably are already paying for in your cellular plan with your internet service provider that provides your landline internet connection. They're probably providing some technical support. So they can solve things like making sure you can connect your devices, helping diagnose, speed or connectivity issues. They can do even remote diagnostics as well. And then you might have product support plans that you have if you have Apple and you have Apple Care, if you bought a support plan from a company, if you bought a support plan as part of your PC or device that you bought, or you purchased a software subscription that has product support, you have some existing support that might be available. So keep that in mind when you have it. I mean, a lot of people forget about support when they buy technology, but it's an important decision to make, when you're buying technology, because the technology might work out of the box, but if you have a problem with it, are you going to be able to get help with it later on? And where are you going to be able to get that? For my website software, because they're so critical to my being able to do things, I rely on support plans. I don't buy any, critical software without having a support subscription with it. The other is manufacturer support sites. So we're going to take a look at each of these. They're really fairly thorough. So if you think you've got a problem with a Google product, you can go to support.google.com. Their support websites usually include the word support, and it includes the maker's domain name. So I'm going to pick up annotation here for a second, and we're going to draw this so that you have google.com, apple.com, microsoft.com, samsung.com. You've got the manufacturer's domain name in them as well. And they also have oftentimes the ability to connect you to a support community so that they have user contributed, but it'll say apple.com, community, or microsoft.com community. And those are typically the most reliable resources for support, because these are the manufacturers that make the products and they keep them up to date. That's one of the biggest challenges with going to non-manufacturer support websites that say, here's how to fix this, or here's how to do this, is that stuff gets out of date because the manufacturer is changing things. And whenever you're within any application that you're using on your computer or tablet or phone, look for a help function. There's usually always a help function available, and it might connect you to help while you're within the application to help you get solving a problem or finding out how to do something. So these manufacturer support sites, let me bring them up just to show you a little bit about what they've got. Apple support is support.apple.com, and they've got support for all of their devices that they make. And they've got a click on Apple Repair, or if you forgot your Apple ID or password, a common issue, questions about billing. They have support videos that are out there. You can search their support site for almost anything. And of course, Apple will typically respond to a support call. Even if you are out of Apple Care or out of warranty, they'll help you with the software side of the issue pretty easily. The hardware side may be another aspect, but they'll help you. And one of the reasons why Apple support gets very high marks consistently is because they make both the operating system and the hardware. So they know that anybody calling in with a Mac is using Mac's OS that's made by Apple on a piece of hardware that's made by Apple. So their support is much more integrated from that standpoint. They're able to deal and diagnose things really, really rapidly. Same thing with all of their products. They're able to do that very, very rapidly because of that integration they have. So if you have a low comfort level, Apple support is a really nice service to have available for you. Microsoft has a great support site as well. They have tools for Microsoft 365, Outlook, OneDrive, Windows. They make Surface devices, and they do provide support plans with phone support for Surface devices. If you can buy them through the Microsoft Store. They also sell them, and you can always buy a Surface support plan if you buy it, I think, within 30 days or when you purchase the product. I'm not sure the time frame on that, but if you were thinking you wanted to buy a Surface because you want to get support from Microsoft, and they're not the only ones that do that. If you buy a Dell or an HP or Lenovo or LG, lots of these companies have direct support plans that are available for you to purchase when you buy the computer itself. And many third parties do that. Some support plans are worth it. Some are not worth it because the cost of replacement or the reliability. Like, I bought a GE microwave, and yes, it has a computer in it, but the support plan for 3 years is about the cost of what it takes to replace the microwave if I wanted to replace it. Now, it's not labor and installation, but I'm going to take a chance. If I get 6 years out of that microwave, I've come out ahead. But computers can be a little more difficult, and if it's critical for you to do work or creativity or other aspects, support's really valuable. Google has a great help and support site, and we talked when we did our Google apps. If you go to Google's upgraded plan, like Google One, they have support options that are available for you to provide help, and Google Workspace gives you even higher levels of support if you want as well. So these are the manufacturer sites. They're just really, really reliable, dependable, up to date all the time. So that's the first place I recommend you go. Another approach is to search for the problem. And this is where when this becomes really important and really valuable and will change the way you find support issues on the web. Is that you could have gone to Google for search, or you could have gone to the company website. If you went to the company website, you will get answers on the company products. They might have some help in the communities if you're working with a third-party product and you're trying to do a multi-vendor issue. But the company websites are a great place to start. But you can use Google, Bing, and even AI to search for technical problems. So those are all ways you can find resources. So crafting the search is the best thing. Use the product or the application name that you want to find or troubleshoot. So if it's a Google Gmail or Microsoft Teams, or get specific in the terminology that describes this, then describe what you do and then describe what happens. You can use a really long search term in Google, Bing, an AI search, and I'm going to show you an AI search tool before the end of today as well. The more descriptive you are in describing what it is that's going wrong, the better the search engine can come up with an answer. They're using some AI to come up with results, but they will typically deliver manufacturer pages for search results. You can check the .com or the .gov or .edu. I found in many cases, school technical support in colleges oftentimes will show up in search results for how to do things with some common applications like Zoom and others. And because university professors and school teachers are doing a lot of things with these technologies, and the school IT departments have created a lot of support documentation as well. The search results are going to deliver informational websites, and they're going to deliver paid services and ads. So be careful of that, what you click on. You may click on something that is going to take you to a service where they want you to pay for support. Just be aware that sometimes you're going to find that paid services will show up in ads and other search results when you are trying to solve a technical problem. Now, evaluating them is difficult because you want to make sure that they're trusted, reliable, accurate, and up to date. And that's sometimes very difficult to do. Trusted names, it's more a matter of brand names and more popular names. Things like PC World, publications that have a print publication. Reliable, have they been around for a while? So do a little research on the website before you necessarily accept their solution as the right solution to do something. And the difficulty with search these days is you'll also get a lot of YouTube videos that will show up, and sometimes you have to scroll through the videos to find the right answer within the video. And it may or may not be up to date or accurate. Things get out of date really quickly, particularly when it comes to software applications. Now, there are built-in support tools, okay? I'm not going to show you all of them because I want to get to some of the tools that are available through AI resources now. But Windows has something called Get Help app, and then Windows Settings and Troubleshooting. And I know we have some Windows users here. Settings is a gear. If you click on your start menu and you look for a gear and you click on settings, you'll get here. Or you can just type in settings or troubleshoot and it'll bring up troubleshooting. There are built-in troubleshooters within Windows and there are built-in troubleshooters within Macs that automatically, fix things for us, even though we may not know about it. Recommended troubleshooter preferences for me are Ask Me Before Running, and they have a little recommended troubleshooter history. Hasn't run any recommended. I don't really have a lot of issues with my Windows computer, but there's lots of troubleshooters, and there's this thing called Get Help. Get Help is actually a separate app. If I go down to the Windows toolbar here and I type in Get Help, you'll see an app pop up. This is actually an app that's built into Windows that brings up a help menu that will help you do things. So you can troubleshoot camera, set up a scanner. They have a couple of common searches. You can search for anything. And if there's a troubleshooter, it'll connect you to a troubleshooter. But some of the other troubleshooters that are built in here have to do with things like audio, network, printer, Windows Update. And then they have others like Bluetooth, cameras, program, video playback if you're having other issues that you might be having with these as well. You can just run these troubleshooters and they'll run automatically. And if they can identify how something, they will give you some advice on what they recommend, or they'll tell you everything's okay and there's no issues that you need to worry about. So it's something that's built into Windows, which is really convenient and very helpful. There are some built-in tools on your iPhone and iPad. There is a support app that's built in. If you just type in a search for support, the support app, and Apple registers your device based on your Apple ID. If you're under support plan, they'll connect you to support, but they'll also check and verify if they can help you with support questions. There's a Samsung Smart Tutor app that's available that will actually give you the ability to connect a Samsung Android device to support, and they can do a screen share. And if you think you're having problems with your Mac, there is a resource to run Apple diagnostics. Rarely do you tend to have a problem with Apple diagnostics, but if you think there's a hardware problem, and sometimes Apple will ask you to run this if they can't find a problem, but if your system's running, you can run Apple diagnostics. The first thing they say is install the latest Mac OS update. We'll talk about that and how that's important. But it'll tell you how to run diagnostics with either Apple or Intel, and it'll diagnose your hardware and it'll tell you if you've got any problems. This is what Apple technicians would have you run through if they think you've got a hardware issue. And if you get a reference code, then you can contact Apple and they will help you out with it if you think you're having a hardware problem. Not very common. Apple Diagnostics is a website, very simple to go through and run this. It's pretty automated. They tell you how to do is to start up an Apple Mac in diagnostic mode. It'll run the test and give you the results. Very, very easy to do. A very common strategy, virtually every time you call or approach somebody for technical support, they'll ask you, are you updated to the current version of the software? They will ask you what version of the software you are using. And so you want whatever software you're using, whether it's an operating system or whether it's an application, you want to go to open up the application, open up the software, go to the settings that usually say, check for updates and update to the latest version, because sometimes a defect or a bug in software has been fixed through a software update that might be taken care of. Another strategy is to restart or reboot your hardware. That means that you are powering it down and powering it back up again. Okay, so that can be done with network devices. It can be done with mobile devices like smartphones. It can be done with printers. It can be done with computers. It can be done with microwave ovens. It can really be done with washing machines. It's sometimes restarting, repowering up resets things in the hardware and software so it restarts and it sometimes fixes a problem. We don't have to restart or reboot as often as we used to because software and hardware are becoming more and more reliable. A last resort, you can reinstall your software. Sometimes downloading a version of software and uninstalling the old version and reinstalling the new one, that can sometimes fix a software problem that might be occurring as well. There might just be something, what's called corrupted in a file that is causing something not to work properly that may be causing an issue for you. Typically, under a warranty and service contract, your manufacturer provides those types of resources. Third parties will provide service contracts, retailer support. Costco provides 2 years on their electronics. Crutchfield is another company that provides support on things like cameras and audio equipment. There's per incident third parties, Geek Squad, Best Buy, etc. And then self-service, which if you can do it, it's great because it's something that's very rapid to get to and solve. Those are some various options to think about in terms of tech support that you might do. And doing it yourself versus paying is a matter of time versus money. Which is more valuable to you? Do you have the time to take care of solving it, or is it something you'd rather not have to worry about and pay? Somebody like a dental office or a real estate office or a professional or an artist or creator it's using their technology for work and income and productivity, you might want to look at an approach that gives you a higher level of support capability when you want to be able to do that. And as a little bonus, I'm going to show you something that's new. So the Pro plan is $20 a month. Okay, so it's not prohibitively expensive. When you use the Pro plan, you get ChatGPT. You also now get what are called GPT. GPTs are basically pre-programmed resources. It also includes a resource called a tech support advisor. So you get a built-in tech support advisor for $20 a month from ChatGPT. So this is a tech support advisor that will do anything. So I want to say, how do I get more disk space on my Mac? Here's a step-by-step guide that will walk me through exactly what I should be doing to get more disk space from my Mac. I've got a tech support advisor for $20 a month that is virtually unlimited in terms of what it can do. So if you're having a problem with something that you can't get an answer for, so I can't connect Gmail to Outlook Mail. I have no idea what it'll do, but we'll check it out. I'll guide you through the process. Okay, here's how you have to do things. It has you check your Google account, make sure you have the settings right, open Outlook, go to File, add account, enter your Gmail address. Outlook will automatically configure. If you're prompted, use an app password. If it fails, what you should do as well. This is probably as good as most technical support professionals you might get from any third-party services, but you do need an internet connection to be able to do this, obviously. But if you had a backup device, you would be able to do it that way. One of the best tech support resources I've seen for $20 a month in a really long time. Thanks for coming. Be sure to subscribe to other resources and sign up and RSVP to other events.